I call this regular meeting of the San Marcos City Council to order. Today is March 5th of 2024. The time is 6 p.m. Ms. Trevino, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Prather. Here. Mr. Scott. Ms. Garza.
Here. Oops, sorry.
Mayor Houston.
Too soon. Now here.
Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gleason.
Here.
And Mr. Mendoza.
Here.
We have a quorum present.
All right, our invocation this evening will be given by Father Christian Hawley, who is the rector at St. Mark's Episcopal Church. Welcome.
God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, of Sarah and Hagar, Rebecca and Rachel. We come before you to ask you to send down upon those who hold office in this city of San Marcos the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people. And on this election day, God, we come before you and ask that you guide the people of this nation, this state, our county and city, in the election of officials and representatives, that by faithful administration and wise laws, the rights of all people may be protected and our nation enabled to fulfill your purpose. Through Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. We will now have the pledges of allegiance. If y'all will join me as you see fit. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right. Next is our citizen comment time period. And the City Council welcomes speakers at work sessions and regular meetings. Those wishing to speak during citizen comment or question and answer must sign up in advance, and it can be as late as 5:45 if you're here in person. If you want to speak online, we do need you to sign up by noon so that we can get a call-in number and a link to you. Speakers may speak once during the citizen comment time period and may not yield time to others. If you speak now about a public hearing topic, we ask that you not repeat exactly the same comments again during the public hearing on the same topic. You will have 3 minutes to speak, and you'll start when you state your name. You'll see the timer on the screen. You'll start in green. The countdown begins. When you have 20 seconds left, the timer will be in the yellow portion. And when the timer is red, your time to speak is up, and you may even get to hear a bell. Council and mayor will endeavor to ensure that meetings are conducted in a courteous manner and an atmosphere free of defamation, intimidation, personal insults, profanity, or threats of violence. Final list. This evening, we have a number of people, and I'm going to call the names out in the order in which you'll be speaking. We have Roseanne Youssef remotely, John David Carson in person, William Moore in person, Lisa Marie Capoletta will be remote, Jaden Allison in person, James Keith in person, Jack Grove remotely, Amanda Rodriguez in person, William Wilson in person, and Eleanor Munoz. We will start with Roseanne Youssef online. Is she online with us? Okay. Roseanne Youssef, it's your turn.
Okay. I'm not sure I can share my screen. Is it just audio?
Just audio. You can put yourself on video if you wish.
Okay. It won't let me, but it's okay. Audio is fine.
Okay.
Good evening, council members. My name is Roseanne Youssef, or Rosanna Youssef. I'm a Palestinian American mental health counselor licensed in the state of Texas. I'm here to talk today to ask that City Council of San Marcos support the introduction of a ceasefire resolution for the city based on what is happening in Gaza. I'm sure y'all are aware of the situation since October 7th, where there was an attack in Israel, and then what is least we say a disproportionate response of force used against Palestinians in what is being investigated as a genocide against Palestinians now in Gaza. We are looking at a Hello, can you all hear me? Can you all hear me?
Oops. Please continue.
We're looking at what is a catastrophic situation in which children are now dying daily due to a man-made famine. And there are thousands of children who are starving and at risk of dying because of a Israeli enforced starvation on Palestinians. All of this genocide, sadly, is supported not just by the United States, but by the state of Texas, which gives absolute support to Israel with no accountability for their complete violation of international humanitarian rights. And this is according to every major human rights organization in the world. This is according to the largest court of law in the world, which is the International Court of Justice, which is investigating Israel for genocide. And I think it's really important that San Marcos join cities across the country in calling for a ceasefire and asking our states and national governments to stop unconditionally supporting Israel as they carry out this genocide. And so I would hope that a ceasefire resolution is something that the city of San Marcos would bring to the floor to discuss and hopefully pass. That's it. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, our next speaker is John David Carson.
Mayor and Council, John David Carson, 1905 Dutton B2. I'm asking you to pull the Buc-ee's item number 2 and deny it. Council's strategic objectives often include multimodal transportation, economic diversification, environmental protection. There is a lot of talk about preserving our unique character. But is Buc-ee's the true manifestation of our priorities? Such a beacon of our values that we will let them build a sign 50% larger than code and insist they put our name on it? Y'all, Buc-ee's sells tons of gas.
Recording in progress.
The stuff whose exploration, refinement, and burning is a major contributor to climate change, air quality degradation, polluted stormwater. Buc-ee's also sells relatively unhealthy food to capture motorists that otherwise might eat at restaurants. It traps travelers that may have considered venturing off the highway into a downtown. Their stores are monuments of inefficient land use, the poster child of destructive developer. Of the 22 acres they'd mostly pave, less than 8% will contain a building for people. Mentioning sustainability last meeting was audacious. The greenwashing so shameless, a standard $100 part became a rain sensor irrigation system. There are zero details in the agreement as to what qualifies as a rainwater harvesting system, nor how or if they will use the water. Buc-ee's aren't lush with landscaping, and the agreement seems to imply they can skirt landscaping ordinances. EV chargers were floated without commitment or even mentioned in the 380. Any that arrive will surely be funded by federal taxpayer subsidies, not Buc-ee's investment in a cleaner future. The incentive was lauded for excluding a property tax rebate, but does Buc-ee's generate more property tax revenue than would otherwise locate on 22 acres of prime frontage? No. Buc-ee's New Braunfels has a tax value of about $800,000 per acre. I spot-checked Kyle Crossing and Stone Creek retail frontages and found valuations between $2 and $3 million an acre. I don't promote highway multifamily, but spot checks there were $2 to $4 million an acre. Generating 20 to 40 cents on the dollar versus other likely development smells like subsidy to me. It seems Buc-ee's compensates employees better than most retail. Kudos. But those jobs will be 2 times closer to the center of Kyle than San Marcos. While I believe in regional economic development, a core tenet is don't subsidize retail jobs. San Marcos has low unemployment but high underemployment and a median household income half that of Kyle. These jobs are still at or below the current San Marcos median household income. They don't meet our employment needs. So the hook here seems to be tourism, and I'm skeptical. Let's look at sales tax. Buc-ee's estimates 20% of their customers are local, which would avert sales from existing businesses. Say another 15 just really need gas or to pee and would have stopped in San Marcos anyway.
The city is considering giving away 50%. That leaves a mere 15% as new sales tax. By the way, what happens to the fueling stations and underground storage tanks in an EV-dominated 2040 when the incentive burns off? If I were you, I wouldn't want a gas station giveaway to be my economic development legacy. This is a bad deal for San Marcos that is misaligned with our values. Reject it.
Our next speaker is William Moore.
Hello, my name is Will Moore, and I live at 1980 Ocarina Springs Drive. I'm a Texas State student, and while I've never worked at Buc-ee's, I know people who have, and none of them lasted more than a month. These were smart, hardworking people who could not tolerate the miserable conditions they had to endure at work. Buc-ee's touts their employee salaries proudly in their stores, probably to account for the rapid employee turnover. On Glassdoor, Buc-ee's has an employee rating of 3 stars. This drops to 2.9 stars among female employees, 2.6 stars among LGBT employees, 2.2 stars among veterans, and 2.1 stars among employees with disabilities. I'm going to read you some of the employee testimonials that I saw. One person said, "You'll work 7 to 10 days straight, and they'll say it's normal. Me and my associates since store opening have been hazed, screamed at, and mistreated by a company who can't retain a third of who they hire." Another employee said, "You're never doing the same task or the task that you were hired to do, and that their managers required sick people to come into work." One person said that they and their coworkers are treated like dogs, and that their managers often say, "If you have time to lean, you have time to clean." A common critique of employees was that they only received one 20-minute lunch break during all shifts, no matter how long, and one even noted that Buc-ee's will intentionally schedule them for 7 hours and 50 minutes in order to avoid having to give adequate breaks. Employees reported not being able to go to their car during their break, and even not being allowed to sit down during their break. Dozens of employees reported getting breaks even shorter than 20 minutes for their shifts of up to 10 hours, and many reported not getting any breaks at all. Also frequently noted on Glassdoor was incredibly strict management from all locations, writing up employees who are a minute late to work. One person said, "They don't care about you and will overwork you to the point where everyone is pissed off or in tears. Most people don't last more than a month." Subjecting San Marcos residents to these abysmal working conditions would be a disservice to them, and I strongly urge you to pull item 2 from the consent agenda and deny it.
Our next speaker is Lisa Marie Capoletta, who joins us online. She's not on? Okay, I'll check, I'll circle back. Then we will go next to Jaden Allison.
My name is Jaden Allison. I live at 1850 Ocarina Springs. I want to talk about item number 2, hoping that y'all can deny this and pull it. As for Buc-ee's itself, it's just not really what San Marcos needs. The infrastructure that it's going to demand is just not what we can handle nor can handle in the next 20 years. San Marcos is supposed to hit 100,000 in the next 10 years. We're not at the infrastructure to handle exactly what we have right now, not to mention what Tex DOT wants with expanding I-35. I'd ask that you pull this. We cannot handle this.
Our next speaker is James Keith.
Hello, I'm James Keith. I'm here to comment on items 17 and 18 regarding residential rentals in San Marcos. To simply recommend no more development of buildings designed for students indicates short-term thinking by the Neighborhood Commission. More than 120 years of growing the university in San Marcos should be enough to indicate there will be more student housing in San Marcos in the future. Maybe the commission should review some of the old city maps and check the dates. Most property currently owned by the university was previously privately owned. I have a residential rental business here, and I've had it for over 40 years. I've had a series of prosperous ventures and personally rewarding experience that provided quality housing to dozens of people, provided a source of passive income for me, and provided a boost in tax revenue for the city and the county. Owning and managing rental properties in San Marcos has been mostly a very positive experience for me. Through the years, my leases and advertising have included text that required compliance to the non-related tenant limits. Through the years, and many positive changes in the single-family rental situation in San Marcos. Due to past councils put a high priority on making effective changes, the changes resulted in improvements to the quality of rental property and neighborhood livability in San Marcos. About 15 years ago, I predicted a market opportunity for clean, modern residences near Texas State. I assembled a portfolio of these type of residences, and many people that lived in the area objected because I removed an old rundown house and I increased density by a little bit. My work sites were actually booby-trapped by people at night intending to harm workers that were working on my projects. The police report is on file. From day one, I've had nearly 100% occupancy with families and students. When the rule changed from 2 to 3 non-related occupants, I adjusted my leases accordingly. New customers were thrilled with the added value due to affordability and being able to walk to Texas State. This is one example how that rule change improved the lives of several people that I knew firsthand. There were others, but I'm not going to speak on the business of others. It seemed the occupancy change from 2 to 3 was a positive change for some. I know of no negatives. I'm not going to jump to conclusions about the Neighborhood Commission recommendation because I view this from the side of a residential rental real estate owner. Apparently, there are examples of negative situations that have occurred as a result of the occupancy limit change from 2 to 3. These examples should be explained in public. I would think all the reasons for requesting the limit being returned from 3 down to 2 be clearly explained. I don't think it would be proper to use the council's time for a recommendation based only on opinions of a group that may lack diversity of thought. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Jack Grove, who joins us remotely. Is he there, Ms. Trevino? Okay, I can circle back. Amanda Rodriguez is next, who is in chambers with us.
Amanda Rodriguez, thank you for having me. Address? Or, okay.
For public hearings, yes. For citizen comment, not required.
Okay, cool. So today I came up here really to do each of you a favor. And I know that sounds super arrogant, but if you'll let me explain as to why, it will make a whole lot more sense. So you've already heard it, but with 30,000 Palestinians dead, that's not just children, mostly children, but that's men, women, and children. 30,000. Many still fear to be under the rubble. So if they haven't died already, they're still under the rubble of their own houses that they built with their own hands. As it was mentioned earlier, there are many dying of dehydration and starvation due to a man-made famine. So the children who somehow managed to survive 150 plus days of terror right now are trying to plead with their pets to not eat them when they die. Not if, when they die. A little girl pleading with her cat to not eat her when she dies. That's all thanks to us. We are subsidizing a literal genocide. Children. So I wanted to take the time to ask y'all something. It might be a rhetorical question, but I'd like to ask y'all something. Have y'all ever thought about what it means and what it would feel like to get a limb amputated without anesthetic? Me either. But this isn't a thought or a question that people in Palestine and Gaza right now have to deal with, because if it doesn't happen through a bullet, if it doesn't happen through a warhead, a doctor will conduct that amputation, and they will do it without anesthetic. And that's happening every day. Thanks to us. So if after hearing that, which is literally merely a drop in the trove of evidence highlighting war crimes, if there are still some of you who continue to live your lives not recognizing the horrors in which we're subsidizing, it genuinely scares me to live beside you. Because have we lost that meaning, the value and the sanctity of life? Are we that far gone as a society? But for those of you who hear this and who have heard the other pleas and will continue to hear pleas because we'll continue to come back, and you wish to move, there's still time. The history books are still being written. And I don't know what y'all's motives were for being city officials, but I'd like to think that you would like to leave the history books with something good. Or you can be like all of the other cities in this state that have done nothing. Nothing. We're just asking for a resolution. A resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire. That is the bare minimum, and that's all we're asking. So if one of y'all wants to have the gall and the courage to bring that forward, oh, it would mean a lot to us. You have our full support. But if we want to continue ignoring the issue and acting like, it doesn't faze us, then I know how y'all feel. So that's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Our next speaker is William Wilson.
My name is William Wilson. Hello there. I'd just like to agree with several of the other people who have come forward and say there should absolutely be a resolution for an immediate ceasefire. I'm sure you guys know what's going on. It's in the news. Do it. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Eleanor Munoz.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Munoz, and I'm here just to basically parrot off what they've said too. I think that the resolution should be considered immediately.
We'll circle back to see if Ms. Capoletta has joined us, has not, and a Jack Grove. Okay, so that concludes the citizen comment portion of our program, and we will go to the consent agenda to see, the following ordinances, resolutions, and other items, numbered 1 through 11, may be acted upon with one motion. No separate discussion or action is required unless desired by a council member, in which case we need to pull it from the list. I'm pulling item 2. Are there any other items between 1 and 11 to be pulled?
Yeah, there was an item I was considering pulling. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, item 2.
Okay. 1 through 11. It's later? Okay.
Yeah, no, we're good, and I just, I'm not gonna vote on that.
Anyone else, anyone to pull? Okay, so I will be pulling item 2. So I'm looking for a motion to approve 1 and 3 through 11.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Gleason and seconded by Mr. Mendoza for 1 and 3 through 11. Mr. Trevino, we will vote.
You want to use a voting machine?
Oh, yes.
Remind me how to do this whenever I abstain. I'm abstaining from 9.
If it's just one, you can go ahead and say yes to all of them, but no to the one that you're specific, and they'll be recorded properly in the minutes.
Okay, got it. So I say yes to all but abstain at 9.
Abstain or no?
Abstain.
It's an abstain, okay.
Okay, the motion passes 6-0 with 1 absent, and Ms. Garza abstaining on number 9.
Got it. Okay, and with our usual practice, we will continue with our public hearings, and we'll go back to item 2 after the public hearings. So, Ms. Trevino, we will roll on to item 12.
Receive a staff presentation, hold a public hearing to receive comments for or against ordinance 2024-10, adopting youth program standard of care of 2024, providing a severability clause, providing for the repeal of any conflicting provisions, and declare an effective date, and consider approval of ordinance 2024-10 on the first of 2 readings.
Presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Jessica Ramos, Assistant Director of Parks and Rec. There's no official presentation tonight. You have all the information in your packet. This is something you see every year. So this is our youth standards of care that we use to create our rules for our children's camps and programs. recreational programs. And I'm here and available if you have any questions.
Okay, and now I will need to open the public hearing. And Ms. Capoletta, has she joined us yet? Okay, is there anyone in the chambers or in the lobby who wishes to speak on this item for, against, or about? If not, I will close the public hearing.
Motion to approve, Mayor.
Second.
And motion by Mr. Gleason and seconded by Mr. Scott. And the one confirmation that I have is the meals that has been up for conversation before. Would you explain what type of meals will be served?
Yes, so we work with the school district to receive free lunches
Okay.
for the kids in the program. So the site that we'll be at is a feeding site, and so they get breakfast and lunch at Summer Fun, and they get lunch at Discovery Camp. They bring the bus by Dunbar
Okay.
to get the free lunch.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I didn't see it in the ARF, so I was just wanting to make sure that was still the case. Okay. Council, any questions, concerns, thoughts? Mr. Trevino, we will vote. And we get to push the buttons. And y'all get to see it up there. All right. Item 13, Mr. Trevino.
Receive a staff presentation, hold a public hearing to receive comments for or against ordinance 2024-11, amending the official zoning map of the city in case number ZZ-24-01 by rezoning approximately 3.04 acres of land out of the subdivision known as Thurman Industrial Park Number 2, Unit 1, Lot 2B, Block 2, located at 2420 IH 35 South, from heavy commercial district to commercial district, or subject to consent of the owner, another less intense zoning district classification, including procedural provisions that provide an effective date, and consider approval of ordinance 2024-11 on the first of two readings.
Ms. Hernandez, welcome back.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Amanda Hernandez, Director of Planning and Development Services. The subject property is approximately 3 acres. It's located between I-35 and Barnes Drive, south of Thurmond Drive. Next slide. The property is currently vacant, and it is surrounded by manufacturing and office uses. The property was zoned heavy commercial in 2005 as the area which was originally envisioned as a business or industrial park. Next slide. The current zoning allows commercial and manufacturing uses, but the applicant has indicated that they would like to build a hotel, which is not permitted in the heavy commercial zoning district. So this is actually a down zoning to CM commercial. Next slide. On the comprehensive plan, this property is within an employment center. Next slide. And the commercial zoning district is a special district, and table 4.1 says we can consider this request. Next slide. The proposed CM commercial zoning, like I mentioned, is a down zoning and would limit the future uses on the property to commercial. And the change is necessary for the construction of that hotel. Next slide. The property is not located within an environmentally sensitive area. There is some 100-year floodplain that you can see on the front of the property along I-35. This is the area that the applicant proposes will be used for their detention facilities. The impervious cover permitted in heavy commercial and commercial is the same, so this is not allowing any additional impervious cover than what's currently permitted. Next slide. Streetscape improvements will be required when the property develops, and the development must follow all other city codes. The City of San Marcos is the utility service provider for this site. Next slide. The Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the request, and their discussion topics included the floodplain, which will not affect the ability of the site to be developed. The floodplain is proposed for detention, and impervious cover allowed on the site will be towards the rear of the lot. The parking location. In CM commercial, it's not permitted in the first layer, so you can't have parking between your building and the street. And the applicant has shared a proposed site plan with staff that shows they can meet this requirement. And finally is the current driveway on the property, which will serve as shared access, and no additional curb cuts will be requested along I-35. Staff recommends approval of this request as presented, and that concludes my presentation.
All right, I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone in chambers wishing to speak for, against, or about this item? Anyone in the foyer?
Hello, Brad Slott, 1251 Sadler East Drive. I am the civil engineer working on this project and here on behalf of the client to answer any questions you guys might have.
All right, thank you for being here. Has Ms. Capoletta joined us? So I will close the public hearing and await a motion.
To approve?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Mendoza, seconded by Mr. Scott. Questions, concerns, thoughts, council?
I was actually fortunate to watch the P&Z meeting when this happened, and there were some great discussions as far as
They
flooding
did.
and things like that. But at the very end of it, I think they had some great assumptions of how this would be for the area, and I'm in favor for it. We could use something like this.
Yeah,
Thank you.
they had some good thoughts.
Very much so.
But at the end of the day, they did vote unanimously in favor. So, anybody? Mr. Trevino, we're ready to push buttons again. All right, moving on to item 14.
My mic. Receive a staff presentation, hold a public hearing to receive comments for or against ordinance 2024-12, amending the official zoning map of the city in case number ZZ-24-02 by rezoning approximately 2.133 acres of land generally located north of the Old Bastrop Redwood intersection from character district to commercial district or subject to consent of the owner, nevertheless intends zoning district classification, including procedural provisions, and provide an effective date and consider approval of ordinance 2024-12 on the first of two readings.
Ms. Hernandez.
Mayor and Council, Amanda Hernandez, Director of Planning and Development Services. This is an approximately 2-acre site at the corner of Old Bastrop Highway and Redwood Road. Next slide. The property is currently vacant and is surrounded by vacant land, senior multifamily housing, the El Camino Real neighborhood, which includes a convenience store with gas sales on the opposite corner. Next slide. This property was zoned Character District 5 in 2021. CD5 allows a mix of uses laid out in a walkable atmosphere with a minimum 2-story building height requirement. And the applicant is proposing a zoning change to CM Commercial to allow commercial-only uses on this corner lot. Next slide. The property is in a low-intensity zone on the preferred scenario map. Next slide. And since CM Commercial is considered a special district, it's not preferred in low intensity. Next slide. Looking at the zoning district, CM Commercial allows commercial uses and is intended to serve as a gateway. The applicant spoke with staff about the potential for a convenience store with fuel sales, which would later require a conditional use permit, but at the Planning and Zoning Commission, the applicant clarified that they are interested in zoning and marketing this property. Next slide. The property is not within an environmentally sensitive area. Next slide. The future development must comply with all city codes and ordinances. The City of San Marcos will provide water and wastewater, and Blue Bonnet is the electric service provider. Next slide. The Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this request. There was a question about the CUP required for gas sales, which would be required at a future date if that is the future use for this property. The Commission also briefly discussed the unique standards for development in CM commercial zoning, which include complying with the Build-to requirement, and any future development must comply with the code standards or seek relief through the relief procedures that are in the development code. Staff recommends approval of this request as presented, and that concludes my presentation.
All right, I will open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone in chambers in the foyer who wishes to speak on this item for, against, or about. Is Ms. Capoletta online? She signed up? Okay. So in that case, I will close the public hearing and await a motion. Motion from Mr. Gleason, seconded by
Second.
Mr. Scott. Council, questions, concerns, thoughts?
This was another one where P&Z had a pretty thorough discussion on,
They did.
and found it pretty interesting, so I'll be in support of it.
Ms. Trevino? We're ready to push buttons. All right. So now that concludes the public hearing portion of our program, and we will be going back to item 2. If you will read that one for us, please, ma'am.
Consider approval of resolution 2024-21R on the second of two readings, approving a Chapter 380 Economic Development Incentive Agreement with Buc-ee's San Marcos LLC that provides incentives in the form of refunds of 50% of sales tax generated by the company over 15 years for the construction of a new Buc-ee's Travel Center along IH 35 south of Yarrington Road, and grants a variance to the height and area requirements for one pole sign, authorize the city manager or her designee to execute said agreement and declare an effective date.
Motion to approve.
I'll give Mr. Gleason the motion and Mr. Scott the second. Council, I have an amendment. There was apparently a thought of the jobs being 150 at one time. You saw in the presentation last time, 175. Unfortunately, that change didn't flow through to Exhibit C. And so my motion, and it's on page 49 of the packet, that in Exhibit C, Job Compliance Affidavit, Item 3, that we delete 150 and insert 175 in front of full-time equivalent jobs. Thank you for the second on that. And there was another place in the agreement that still had 150, but staff caught that one before this, and so what's in your packet is correct except for this one. So I've got my motion, Mr. Scott has seconded it. Are there any questions on the motion to amend? Then let's vote on the motion to amend.
Okay, the motion passes 6-0.
Hold on, I wanted to wait
That's
till that
Mr.
got up
Gonzalez.
there. Yeah,
At
we
his
went,
absence,
we went
excuse
through that pretty quick. Okay, thank you very much. And anything else on item 2, the Buc-ee's, and this is simply the incentive agreement. Yes, ma'am?
Wait, I mean, if anybody else wants to go first, while I flesh this out, actually.
I just wanted to note the dollars that will be coming into our community from property tax, sales tax for us, for the city, and for the county, and that's in the Hayes School District, but that's going to benefit some school kids somewhere. So that's the agreement in the packet, and the presentation is the part about the dollars that will be coming into our community. And the full agreement, incentive agreement is in our packet. Did I buy you enough time?
Right, yeah. I guess my question is there anybody here, I guess from the Buc-ee's, who they want to, if they're able to address some of the concerns that we heard earlier? I don't know if that's an appropriate time to talk about it right now. Like,
Now's our last time to talk about it
Yeah.
before the agreement.
because the one thing that I said, I mean, I said a lot of silly things, I'm not gonna lie. But the one thing that I was very serious about is I support Buc-ee's if they're gonna take care of their people. And so the comments from today and just comments that I received between the last time between the first reading and now kind of left me a little bit, unclear about where they stand in terms of the allegations of not giving appropriate breaks and so on and so forth. So are they here? No? Are they online? Or?
Don't know, but I think Mr. Pantalian is, where our economic development manager is here coming to join us, and he may be able to answer some of those questions, but I don't know if this might have come up in any conversations that y'all had with them.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Christian Smith, Economic and Business Development Manager, City of San Marcos. You'll have to pardon me for just a second. I just stepped in, so I didn't catch the question that
Right.
y'all
So
asked.
earlier during citizens' commentary, we had some neighbors express concerns regarding the treatment of employees. Things like not enough breaks, kind of strict when it comes to tardiness and so on and so forth. And I think Glassdoor or something was cited, or different reviews. But I also heard that just, everybody's like, oh, let me give you the cheese man. So I just wanted to know, like, were those types of conversations had in terms of rumors or allegations that have been thrown around regarding like treatment of employees, and like, did they refute that? Because I mean, that's the only thing I asked is like, okay, you guys, awesome for paying a livable wage, but yeah, I don't know, man. Just give me the scoop, I guess.
Sure. So in terms of those specific considerations, I think a minute ago we had a representative from the company who was available, and so I can check and see if she's available to speak on those specific items. That being said, in conversations we had with representatives from Buc-ee's in terms of employee morale or things of that nature were really related to the longevity. We heard a lot of conversations about how people who had joined the company stay there for an extended period of time, and because of the benefits that Buc-ee's provides, they're actually able to pull from a wider range of talent pools than you might have for a comparable company in the same sector. And so that's really the most I could say about that specific comment as it relates to, employee morale is really most of the retention and things of that nature.
Right. I don't even know what other clarifying questions to ask, because it's just one of those things, like, I wasn't around when we voted for Amazon. I'm kind of scared of them, I'm not gonna lie. But I've said over and over again, in my perspective and what I've heard from our neighbors, is that the treatment of workers is just absolutely terrible. And so I don't want to have any association with bringing in an entity that is going to carry on that type of behavior. And so, yeah, I don't know. Did you say they were gonna hop on, or they were here a second ago, or?
It looks like the representative isn't available at this time.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody's gonna vote yes, but I'll be voting no on this, just because I can't. Yeah.
In the research that I did on Buc-ee's, one of the things I was looking for, since it's a gas station, were there environmental issues? Had they ever had a problem they didn't address? I didn't find that they'd ever had a problem with that.
No.
And the main complaint was the lighting, which we have addressed, they have addressed here with the downward lighting so as not to light up the entire neighborhood. And so now I'll admit I didn't look at Glassdoor, I didn't, but I just did some searches and was looking and was happy to see that there weren't environmental issues that I could find with Buc-ee's, and I didn't find problems with employees. There's always going to be, when you have that many, there's going to be somebody unhappy, and I don't know what those reasons might be, other than what we've heard today. But I do remember Mr. Beard saying that they like to keep their employees. That's why they pay them well. I remember him specifically saying that a person who had been cleaning bathrooms 7 years ago is now a department manager. And they like to keep their employees, train them, and pay them well so they can keep them. And so they see the value of keeping employees and not having to train new employees all the time.
Well,
so that I liked what he said.
I guess a follow-up question to that is, whenever they made assertions about longevity, did they provide data to support those assertions?
So as it relates to the longevity of the employees, the example of that one gentleman who's now a department store manager, and the ability to move up throughout different positions from the company, regardless of where you started, was something that they mentioned several times. In terms of a metric to show that average rate of longevity, I don't have that available to provide at this time, but it's certainly something that could look into.
My question is, did they provide that?
No.
No, so it was qualitative,
Correct.
Gotcha. Because I love that notion of upward mobility. I love that story. It's interesting to me how we just take things face value. No offense to Buc-ee's, I love you, but I feel like I'm not doing my due diligence if I don't ask those questions. I personally am not comfy moving forward with this, I don't got much fight left in me, you guys, if I'm being for real. I'm exhausted, but y'all have answered my questions. Does anybody else share my concerns, or we're good, or what's up?
Well, I had a, you want to go over? Well, I expressed it when the gentleman was here, that I heard that, the way they did their pay or background checks, that's what it was, that, there's a rumor that they did background credit checks on people to get hired, and apparently that wasn't true. So, I mean, there's a lot of urban legends that run around when things like this happen, so I haven't found any truthful information that counters, you know, our supports basically that Buc-ee's is a bad company by any means.
And the one thing I'll throw out there too is, you know, I've had a lot of employees over the years, and I'm sure there's a few that weren't happy with me, and you probably would be the first to hear from those. Proportionally, you're always gonna hear about the negatives, and you're very seldom gonna hear about the positives. And I know some people that have worked at the New Braunfels location for quite some time, and that upward mobility is extremely important. I have left jobs where I felt like I didn't have that opportunity in the future, so I'm in full support of this, and, you know, no job is perfect. You don't have to work there, but if you're providing people opportunities, and the other thing too is if you're gonna pay someone more to do the same job they would do someplace else, you're gonna need additional productivity out of them to justify that. And so there is gonna be some additional demands on that, doing the same job for more money than it would have been somewhere else with less amount of money. So nothing is perfect, but I have never heard anything that would push me away from this, of this not being a positive to the community. So I'm in full support.
Right. I just have one more comment. I hear you about the negative reviews usually getting highlighted over positive ones, but I guess I just want to name that in the future it would be beneficial, I think, to our neighbors if we are, or if companies that approach us are making assertions such as, you know, where we contribute to upward mobility or longevity or employment satisfaction, that we verify that and ask for metrics, or even do our own research on the side. It just makes me feel super uncomfy that we're hearing this in the second reading. And I mean, again, between the first and the second reading, and yeah, I don't feel quite satisfied with the answers.
Mayor, if I could also, sorry, I just want to jump in there, because, so this was very important to me, Buc-ee's was. As everybody knows, I keep repeating it over and over again, and I'm gonna be a broken record here. I don't have a college education. So as soon as I got out of high school, I had to go and do what you had to do to make a living. That's the way things work out. That's part of being an adult. So I look at this as, how do we help individuals here in town? We've gotten reports over and over again that over 60% of our population has a high school equivalent, or I'm sorry, has a high school degree or equivalent. So I think that this is a positive way to provide employment for those of us who don't have a college degree, who don't rely on our 4 years in college, those of us who have to work part-time at the outlet mall along with our first job, those of us who have to take anything when we get laid off. Again, because I'm not fortunate enough to have a degree, I'm susceptible to layoffs. I'm susceptible to every single thing that most people are not. So I have to keep that in mind for our citizens. Again, those who make, I think it's now under $50,000 for a family of 4, that again, over 60% don't have a college degree. This is good for them. This is 24 hours. These are things that are going to help build a foundation for these people. I know not every job is fantastic. I'm not a big fan of mine either. But it allows me to build whatever kind of foundation I can for whatever future family I have, or for my family that I have now. So I don't want to take this away from them. I don't want to make it seem like this is not important for the underserved people of our city.
I hear you.
And Ms. Garza, I want to agree with you that I think the metrics on all this really do mean something. And it would be nice to see what turnover rates are and what upward mobility numbers look like. I think it's hard to quantify a little bit in that the last 4 years have overturned the job market and the world in general. And where would we go back to look at? And also, each community is going to be very different on its workforce base on what those upward mobility numbers and retention numbers look like. And so I don't know how you would compare. You might be able to find another community with a median income ours that is that low compared to ours, and try to put apples and apples together. But I think that's a difficult thing to do. I saw it in the same company in the different stores in the same town, where retention, because of the demographics of the customer base or the transportation needs. I worked for a company that had multiple stores within a fairly close geographic area, and one store would have terrible turnover. And it was just a segment of factors that the company really doesn't have any control over. So I'm agreeing with you that it's important. I just don't know how you quantify it. And after the last 4 years.
Yeah, I hear you. Thank you, Councilman Mendoza, for naming that we have a lot of neighbors who want to work. They don't want handouts. They want to work. They want to provide for their families. They're willing to work hard. I see that every day. We see that every day. I think that's really important to name. I worry. It's like at what cost, right? I just think of other companies that allegedly,
No, I
you
will say
know,
this.
but
Above and beyond, you have been somebody on our council that does really go above and beyond in caring for that, and I do appreciate that. I really do, as much as you and I kind of have different, but yeah, I know, right? But you care, and I really appreciate you bring that up because it is extremely important, so thank you.
right. And then, yes, I mean, I think the energy it's gonna pass. I liked a lot of what I heard in the first reading. I just think it's just like important to name the concerns. And I get it. Perhaps it's hard to quantify. However, the fact that we haven't attempted to is like very problematic to me. But, yeah. I'm just,
Yeah.
I think that's a very good point that we should look into that, maybe
Well,
not for this one.
yeah, and I don't mean to dismiss the concerns. I'm wondering if there was one manager who was not stellar.
Sure.
And I suspect that they probably didn't last long at a Buc-ee's. But we know what to look for, and we will certainly keep our ears to the ground when this one opens and employees start working, and to see what they might do or not do here.
Well, you're right. I hope if it's not if they don't treat their individuals well, I hope that something does change within that company.
I've
how
heard lots of
would
good
we
things about the Luling.
intervene?
There's
no mechanism for us to hold employers accountable, right? Because you're saying, like, you know, you hope, like, along the way, like, there's.
How can we hold them
There are rules, and I don't know what those rules are, about employees and employee breaks and things that are required.
And a lot of that's state law. I mean,
That's
those
that's
are-
what I mean. There's
There's
rules
employment
about that.
laws in place here, federal and state.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The breaks and, you know, the hours, working conditions, those kinds of things. So it's through the Department of
Do
Labor.
we require that signage to be up in every one of our businesses in the city or within the state of Texas?
I don't know about other businesses. I know we have stuff. Mr. Aguirre, do you know?
Yeah, we do not regulate most of those things in terms of employment practices generally. And
No, because if the feds and the state are regulating it, we're not, so.
Right. I mean, what I will commit to is if and when we do hear about the poor treatment of our neighbors, I will commit to organizing alongside my neighbors to hold them accountable. But that's really all I got. I don't got nothing in my policy toolbox. It's kind of empty most of the time, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I'll commit to calling the guy who made the promises here. So, so there we are.
Well, and I don't think this is gonna be the last time that Buc-ee's is gonna be going to a governmental entity asking for these kind of things.
Yeah.
That there will be some time for that too.
Yeah, I just know that store in Luling was a game changer for that small town as far as wages. Okay, so, are we ready to vote?
Yes, ma'am.
So we have passed my amendment to make that correction, and now we're voting on the main motion as amended.
I did have one thing, though, kind of crunched my mind.
Quickly?
So sorry. Because of what was said, in the agreements sometimes that we have to come up with companies coming, I wonder if we can create some type of metrics that if they violate certain things.
We have an economic development policy, and so if we want to add some things that we want to find out about people or companies, that would be the place, Mr. Pentalian?
We can do it here, too. if we
Hold
want.
on.
That's correct. In fact, our existing economic development policy includes an option for us, depending on the company and to the degree that we would like to fund that, to get a report out. And Christian,
Right.
was it an EGR report? Can you elaborate on that?
The ESG report
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of shows their environmental, social, and governmental metrics and addresses some of those concerns.
Excuse me, if you're not tying the economic development incentive to that, I mean, if it's really about sales tax and their performance of that, it's not necessarily employee-based, it's gonna be hard to put a clawback on how we're governing.
Yeah, that was to find out who they are and do we even want to talk to them, right?
Yes.
That's what the
So-
purpose of
Yes.
that
That's
was. So, yeah, that's why I'm saying, I'll call the guy who made the promises to us. But no, we can't regulate that, but
mean,
there are
think-
other agencies that are looking
Right.
at those employment
I mean,
practices.
think if we were to have that for every single business within the community, that's just not something that we
Well, I
could
think
regulate.
one of the
but there are
questions-
agencies that do.
But one of the questions that Ms. Garza had is if they're going to make the claim, my words, if they're gonna make the claim about longevity, then, which I didn't know that was coming, but if they're gonna make the claim about longevity, then we'd like to see some numbers. And if we had asked that last time, we might have had those numbers this time, and we didn't ask, but that's something but that's what I was talking about in the economic development policy. If we want to ask those kinds of questions and get that
Put it in
up
the
front.
policy for next time.
Yeah, that, if we want to pursue that, then that's where it is. I don't think we can just ask them off the
Well,
cuff
again,
here without
I'm
having
not trying to
stuff.
regulate anything, I'm just trying to either give an avenue for people who need to complain to the right areas or whatever. But
Yeah, because it's not us, but there are
Exactly.
places that they can report that to.
Right.
Right.
Correct.
Well, and so that future companies hear this conversation and show up with that data and present it to us when they speak about it, what I think
Yeah,
would be.
because when you've got like
Be
the Texas
helpful.
Workforce Commission, again, you'd have Department of Labor, so there are regulatory agencies that they can report unfair practices or any of those kind of
He was talking about the
allegations to.
longevity, to get the information. Okay, anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay, so we will continue with our voting, and I've already pushed a button, so it's not blinking for me. Okay. All right, so that brings us to our non-consent agenda and item 15.
Consider an appeal of the administrative decision denying a request to vary from the requirement to install electrical facilities underground rather than overhead in the Whisper South development.
And
Motion to approve the denial? I don't know how we do that. A motion to deny, motion to approve the denial?
tell us, if
Well,
we say yes, what are we,
think
are we going with what staff
I wanted to
said?
be clear on my motion.
I think what you can do is have the staff presentation first, because
we-
it's an appeal, and then you can make your motion if you first have the staff presentation.
I really need a motion to get this on the floor, don't I? Because this is
Just
not
to
a
get,
public
if you
hearing.
just want to bring it to the floor,
But,
that's
but
fine.
that's what Mr. Gleason is asking, is, it's sort of like that motion to deny and yes means no
Yeah.
and all that stuff. Exactly, if he
Yeah.
makes a motion to
He can make a motion
approve.
to uphold the staff
the denial, okay.
determination.
Okay, Mr. Reynosa.
Good evening, Richard Reynosa, Assistant Director of Engineering. I'll give a little bit of context on this appeal before I get into the details of it. This is for the Whisper South development located between IH 35 and FM 110, north of the Blanco River. It is entirely within the city limits. Proposed land uses across the development include light industrial, multifamily apartments, and residential. The major infrastructure across the development is under construction, and there is a public improvement district across this property for improvements including streets, drainage, utilities, parks, and landscaping. So specific to the appeal is regarding the extension of electrical infrastructure And the code establishes the criteria within our development code and also the General Code of Ordinances, Chapter 86. And the development code states that the installation of a new electrical distribution infrastructure shall be installed underground in accordance with Chapter 86. And Chapter 86 states any new development in the city limits shall have underground electric facilities. Now, we do have some overhead electric throughout the city in some older established areas, and these are just examples of what you can see when overhead electric is constructed. So Whisper South is appealing staff's decision to deny the request to install overhead electric. Their specific request is to install overhead electric facilities along these highlighted roads, proposed roads named Connection Boulevard, Aiken Drive, Altamira Lane, and Gertrude Pass. So this is a little bit unusual. The reason that you're seeing this is because of recently passed legislation. House Bill number 14 passed this past summer and is came into effect in September, established an appeal process to staff decisions where an appeal process wasn't provided for through the city. And so the development code was amended to allow for this and states where a development application does not include a provision for appeal, or where city council is not appeal body, an applicant may appeal to city council. And to clarify, no hearing is required for this appeal. So some of the overhead electric considerations that the applicant provided in their requests is that overhead electric exists in the area of the development. There is some overhead facilities along IH-35, Harris Hill Road, and there is a LCRA transmission line traversing through the development. There is some floodplain in the area that crosses, you can see where the Aiken Drive crosses a tributary of the Blanco River. There is, again, the LCRA transmission lines that exist overhead, and they stated overhead provides greater flexibility to adjust lines and provide greater loads. I did discuss some of these with our electric utility, and we're going through a few neighborhoods where we're going underground conversions from overhead to underground, and some of these areas are within the floodplains. So that our electric utility doesn't have concerns of the floodplains. They also stated the loads aren't a matter of whether that goes overhead or underground. They stated we serve Texas State, which is a significant load, and that Texas State campus is completely underground. So I did include a publication that spoke onto the benefits of underground electric. And so these are some of the considerations: improve safety, reduce the risk of accidents and injuries caused by contact with overhead lines, enhance reliability, less vulnerable to damage from storms, wind, and other external factors. There is an aesthetically pleasing aspect of it. It doesn't require the use of poles and wires and compounded by telecommunication lines. There is improved security, less vulnerable to tampering. There are some environmental benefits, might lessen emissions, and protects wildlife, reducing the risk of collisions with overhead lines. With that, staff is recommending denial of the appeal, requesting the installation of overhead electric facilities. We did provide an alternative if City Council were to consider approving that we would recommend limiting the overhead facilities within the light industrial commercial area, which is between IH-35 and Harris Hill Road, because between Harris Hill Road and FM 110 is your primary residential area. And also R.W. McDonald, who is the applicant, is here and available for any questions. And that ends my presentation.
All right, thank you. Council, questions?
Yes, ma'am. I just have one question for you. If you can go back to this slide that says overhead electric considerations, that broke down the LCRA lines and things like that. Thank you very much. The overhead lines that we see over Harris Hill Road, who has ownership of those lines? Is it our utilities or is it LCRA?
Those are Pedernales Electric.
Oh. Okay,
Who's the
so a
ser-
whole nother level of people that we don't have any kind of regulations over?
So when their facilities within the city limits, they've agreed to comply with the city standards. So whether it's Pedernales or Bluebonnet, they will comply with city regulations and requirements for how electric is constructed within the city limits.
Oh. So in time, that Harris Hill Road overhead lines will eventually be underground?
No, they can remain as they exist today, but that if they were ever replaced or increased, they would go underline. Currently, majority of this was within the county until this recent annexation. It's now within the city limits.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
And that LCRA transmission line, there's no lines coming off of that one into this neighborhood, correct?
I don't believe so, but I don't know that for a fact.
I wouldn't think so. Okay. Council, other questions? Concerns, thoughts? Then
It needs to be a goal, a long-term goal of the city to have as many of our power lines underground. I don't think we should make any special exemptions unless there's something very unusual with the geography, like there's a cave or something where it'd be, they cannot do it at that one particular spot. But in general, there's a lot of benefits to having underground utilities, and whenever we can to move our current utilities that are above ground, underground, new developments, for them to all be underground, I think we should always be striving for underground utilities for a variety of reasons, from safety to aesthetics, for a whole host of things.
can we go back one slide to why it's good to have electric lines underneath and all of these reasons, and we less concerned about weather, intense weather for one. So, anything else? Mr. Trevino, I see you have us ready to vote because I see the lights blinking. Yes is to uphold the staff's recommendation.
Thank you.
And thank you for wanting to make sure that's clear. Mr. Scott?
Okay, motion passes 6-0.
Okay. And on to item 16.
Consider an appeal of the administrative decision denying a request to vary from the requirement to install electrical facilities underground rather than overhead in the Whisper Industrial Development.
Looking for a motion?
Motion to uphold the denial.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Gleason, seconded by Mr. Mendoza.
So this is a similar request in the same subdivision. I'll stick to the specifics of this request. This request is for specifically the light industrial zoned portion of the development. You can see the black outlined is a portion of Aiken Drive, which the industrial site will be constructing themselves. And this is between IH-35 and that Aiken Drive. Proposed land uses around that development is light industrial, commercial, and multifamily apartments. They are currently under permitting. Again, the city code requirements are the same as before. Similarly, these are examples of overhead infrastructure. And again, their specific request is to install overhead electric facilities along this portion of Aiken Drive, shown here in the dark black. I won't go over the legislation that passed. Again, these are the underground electric considerations as before. They had similar considerations. They are more directly impacted by the LCRA transmission line, but that does not necessarily affect their ability to place it underground. They did also claim the floodplain, which this portion doesn't cross the floodplain at all. So they had similar considerations as the previous request. And staff recommends denial of the appeal as provided. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, thoughts? Ms. Trevino will vote. Yes is to uphold staff's.
The motion passes 6-0.
I should have made that clear right before we voted. My bad. All right, thank you. On to item 17.
Hold discussion regarding the Neighborhood Commission Recommendation Resolution 2024-01RR-NC, encouraging the council to return the number of unrelated individuals to 2 unrelated persons in the Development Code and provide direction to the city manager.
Motion to deny.
There's no motion, it's a discussion,
I want to say it anyway.
but that's fine, but this is a discussion item. And it is now on the table, and we can discuss, and it's always a good thing. One question that I have, and it was answered on the message board, was, I don't remember who was on it because I wasn't, but we had a council committee assigned to have that discussion. And my question is, did anything come out of that? Looks like Ms. Hernandez has the answer to this, which is good.
Yes, good evening, Amanda Hernandez, Director of Planning and Development Services. Council members Garza, Gleason, and Mendoza were appointed to this committee in 2023, and the short answer is it hasn't been a priority with all of the other committees that we have going on, development-related, which have time constraints and comp plan. So we have not met with this committee yet.
As with most committees that I sit on, I always feel that my issues and concerns are committed away because y'all know how busy I am. I'm not being funny or facetious right now. I'm being 100% real. Yeah. So, yeah, no, we haven't met.
We were at a meeting, we were
did go to a
invited
meeting.
for a neighborhood meeting, and we made it very clear.
To the neighborhood commission.
Commissioners, excuse me, to the neighborhood commission meeting. And Ms. Garza and I made it very clear that we wanted to have this subcommittee get together because the issue kept being brought up of how do you define family? I mean, what are these things that we really want to discuss? And I think it's fair for us to still have that meeting. I would like for us to
Well,
discuss
that,
these things.
I think that was one of the things that I had hoped would come out of that, is because we've got a odd way of describing it. And I remember what was in the Land Development Code, not the previous one, but the one before that, which I think was maybe somewhat better. So I was hoping that what would come out of the committee and y'all's thoughtful discussions was maybe a better definition that we could at least get before the next Land Development Code.
I hope that's what will happen, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Can't make
So-
any promises.
But I will say that I hope this does not go into the table. I mean, I can understand Mrs. Garza's expression on that, but I can tell you, Ms. Garza, I am just as very much pushing for this to happen also. So I would like for us to have that meeting, but I'm sure it's just organizing us to get together
Right.
to discuss things. But I will say that neighborhood commission was very expressive of us wanting to get them answers for our rules, so.
I have a question for Mr. Hernandez. When are we up for LDC amendments again? Remind me of that timeline?
After we approve the comprehensive plan.
So we
Well,
decided to wait till after the comp
That's
plan.
when we'll start the new LDC. We've
The
still got
amendments.
some
Well, we got-
leftovers from the last
Yeah.
time we did LDC updates that are still
Pending.
hanging out
We have
there.
notification considerations, conditional use permit considerations. We have a lot of things that are kind of building
Yeah.
up on that list with this occupancy restrictions that we were planning to roll into the bigger update since it's imminent.
Right.
The Land Development Code changes to our current code. The things you just mentioned are imminent?
No, the code update will be imminent, so we weren't going to run another code update since we just did an update in October.
Yeah, but we didn't address these, and these were still out there, and I thought we were gonna address these this spring.
In
If we
springtime.
can get the committees, and again, it's really about priority for our department with the comprehensive plan being postponed multiple times. It's put a stressor on us being able to even do the research that you all need, because we don't want to have a meeting where we
For
don't
the
have
sake of a
anything to
meeting.
present to y'all.
Right.
So we're working on the committees that we're
I would think.
assigned previously right
I
now.
would think the comp plan being postponed would have given y'all some
Oh.
elbow room and some time to do other stuff.
Unfortunately not, because we continue to work on the comp plan while it's postponed and have additional committee meetings and things like that, so.
And all the work with going into the survey for the whatchamacallit and
Well,
the-
yeah, once the survey results
Yeah.
came in, there was some stuff to do.
But we've been creating
Okay.
a laundry list of items that we would bring forward, and we
Okay.
anticipated they would roll in after the comp plan.
But I have strayed from what exactly is on the agenda. And so, of course, we were talking about that in the Land Development Code update. So, council, we have a recommendation resolution for us to discuss that came from the Neighborhood Commission. And just looking to see, at this point, it's, do we want to move forward, do we not?
I do not. I will add that I do think that there was a little bit of lack of clarity regarding just like the whole timeline of things, right? So they brought it to the table and they were unclear as to what vote had taken place and when. Is this already a thing? Is this floating in the air? Is this first reading, second reading on Mars? And so I was curious kind of as to like how it got on their radar and why they wanted to talk about it. So I'm just naming that to name that in whatever method we proceed with having this conversation, where if it's at a committee or even one-on-one, I would appreciate like those fabulous little write-ups that you all do with like the timeline of it all. Amanda did a really good job at explaining things on the fly during that meeting. I don't have any of my notes. I think that would be beneficial. But that's all I got.
You brought up something. What sparked the conversation at the Neighborhood Commission? Were there complaints?
I don't know.
From somebody?
Rick Carr, Director of
I was
Neighborhood
also
Enhancement. It came about because they brought it up when you guys were talking about it, and they wanted to comment on that, but the time it takes to do a resolution, to give it to them, and then they make changes and stuff, and it gets back. You'd already made the decision, so they decided to just go ahead and make their comments known for the future,
Right.
so.
But I feel like one of the things was, because I remember we talked about the occupancy restriction, the first conversation where we voted to change it a long, long time ago. And then it got brought up again, I think during, I don't know whatever. And so, yeah, I think there was a lack of clarity on that.
I believe why they invited, because they didn't know the story where it got to, and that was some previous council members that talked a lot about it, and the decision was made, and so between that and just wanting to know, they were just pretty set on making their opinion known. So.
Right, because I was looking at my notes, we had the conversation in 2020, I first brought it up in 2020. So yeah, that's just, something to be mindful of in the future. I think the conversation should be had alongside community, but when there's lack of clarity, and I know that there's origin story stuff where it's a lot of folks have talked about this, but if they're inviting Councilman Mendoza and myself, I also didn't know what the rationale was or the expectation, and I think it was give us the background, the inside scoop. And this noggin just is not wired that way. I can't recall things from working memory like that. Yeah, but I've read it. I hear them. I heard some concerns. I just think I've already expressed why I support increasing the occupancy restrictions. So.
I have a question for Mr. Hernandez. If, I knew that we hadn't met on that, and I couldn't even remember when we formed that committee.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, and I hadn't pushed the issue because they had so many other things going on.
Yeah.
I mean, can we at least just put it on the timeline that we meet before midsummer or something as a committee and meet on that, or?
If you
am I
wait that
moving that
long, we'll be
timeline?
on the new Land Development Code.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to find a happy median here, Mayor, where I wasn't
Right.
telling staff, hey, I wanna meet next month on this. I mean, it's April already, but
Right, and
So-
I appreciate you don't want to have meetings for the sake of meetings without being prepared,
Yeah,
without having a
yeah.
timeline. I appreciate that.
But I do think, hold on a second, I do think that there's going to be a lot of value in coming up with a better definition of the unrelated, assuming this carries forward to the next land development code. And since y'all are already committed to that thought, I hope that y'all will work on that.
And I actually thought that was gonna be more of the discussion than the 2+, or the 3+1, whatever. But yeah, we can, it's, I don't think that issue's ever gonna fully go away, but maybe we can come up with something. But the family thing, I think, definitely needs to be clarified.
And I think I would just probably want to check in with Ms. Reyes and Mr. Pantalion to address our priorities.
Yeah.
Because a couple of these committees that I mentioned were established and appointed in 2022. So we're running way behind on getting committees together, and those that have applications associated with them, my Riverbend Ranch group, my workforce housing group that just met, those have more imminent deadlines, so they always get put in
course
front
they
and
do.
everything else gets put behind. So, it's a matter of prioritizing all of the different things we have moving, and I think we're close to being ready to meet on the other two committees. So the question is, do we stop that research and prep and shift over to this? Again, because we want to make sure we can give you the most and best information, research other communities, and have all of that there as resources for the committee when they do meet.
Maybe we should table it.
As much as this is a concern of mine, I really have we've already spoken with them, we've already made the ordinance that we did beforehand from the 2 to 3. I have no problem with waiting until we have higher priorities taken care of beforehand. It's just really discussing the details about what the ordinance, the rules, what we're saying about family-oriented, things like that, family relation. I'm okay with postponing as long as they feel comfortable for doing it.
I'm afraid then it ain't ever going to come up.
Well, we're gonna keep pushing it. I have faith in Mr. Gleason and Ms. Garza to
Right.
keep pushing.
I think because of what Amanda explained about the deadlines and all these other things, and I just want to name also that Amanda does a fabulous job at literally pulling us aside and like pull out your calendar to make sure that it all aligns. And because we're not full-time council members, a lot of us have full-time jobs outside and we have no dedicated staff. That means so much, and I just want to name that if I'm hearing it's not a priority to discuss, then whenever y'all have time, whenever I have time, for being
I
honest.
think one of the questions is, what is our priority? I know they've got priorities, and you've got some deadlines and next days to get back with people, and I get those. But at some point, how much of a priority do we want to put on it as a council?
And that's where I'd like a little bit of feedback, because yes, we can provide a memo that shows everything that's outstanding and kind of the prioritization we're putting on that, but then what's the feedback loop to let us know as a body if we're on the right track or not? So that's where I fall a little bit, like just needing a little bit of input, if y'all would like for us to bring back a discussion item on timing and prioritization, or?
I would personally like to have a meeting with us by at least September.
Here's
If y'all give us that,
here's
then
my
that-
suggestion, because I know how thorough Ms. Hernandez is. I would hope that there would be, and I'm going to propose at some point when I get to it, on our council committees, that the first meeting be within 30 days to figure out what is it that you really want and how much research you need from staff. It may be that staff's doing some stuff that isn't an expectation, and we really don't need to be spending time doing stuff that's not an expectation. I personally would like to see this committee meet ASAP, no other prep, no going through, other cities and what they do, and just figure out what y'all really want to do and how you're going to address this. And then at that point, we'll know how much time it's going to take. The next meeting may not be for 3 or 4 months or 5, but at least y'all have met and gotten some idea of what you even want to get done as a committee. That's what I would ask for.
Yeah, you may not want to change it even at all, just leave it like it is.
But the definition needs a lot of help.
So, yeah, it's so vague right now, we definitely need to.
Yeah. So that's what I would like to see.
Those that are a member of it, I think with
Yeah.
spring break coming up next week, I don't know what that means for people. If it's looking in April, And if that, would work, because it's going to be up to y'all's schedules too.
Well, let's see if the committee feels the same way, to at least get together and figure out and define what data y'all are gonna want.
Again, to my colleagues, this is something that's important to me personally, so I'm ready to go tomorrow. I'm ready to go whenever you guys are ready, and I will clear my schedule. I'll say that now.
Right. I unfortunately do not share the same sentiment. I mean, we're all about to travel next week. I don't feel like the energy from the community that this is like a pressing matter. I could be wrong. I can't commit to like talking about it tomorrow, right?
Next 30 days?
We're in March, where are we?
Yeah,
Yes,
by the end of March.
Damn, I'm always overcommitting myself. Yeah, I guess, but
Do you want to remain on the committee?
I do. I just think it's
Okay.
like such a non-issue. Like we already passed this. Like let's move on.
In all
There's
fairness,
so many things that we just passed, and everybody still has feelings, thoughts, and emotions, and we don't like keep, revisiting and revisiting and revisiting.
Well, and I'm not talking about the 3 to 2, it's the definition
Gotcha.
to
Oh,
get
that's
squared
fine.
away. That's the urgency that I feel.
And I just want to
Okay.
say, I think these two recommendations will only exacerbate housing affordability.
Let's just talk about the one that we're
yes.
talking about right now. Okay, so you don't feel any sense of urgency. I'll write that one down.
Maybe that's not
Mr.
the right
Gleason, you're on
word.
the committee.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many things going on at the planning department that I hate to throw another wrench at. I do think the three of us could meet and discuss some things without a whole lot of staff input to kind of get a feel.
I'm talking about no staff prep needed at all.
Yeah,
Y'all
that-
just
that-
get together and figure out what it is that
Yeah,
you
and I
want
think
to
we can
get
start to
done.
work on
The-
some of the family stuff, so.
I mean, perhaps, but again, I want to name that meeting for the sake of meeting for me just doesn't make sense. Like, I don't have the capacity to sit down and do research on something that I just think is kind of a non-issue right now. I'm just like trying to be real. I'm trying to really articulate when I am at capacity, and I am doing things that I think are more of a priority to my constituents. But if it's, I guess if we're being very specific that the intention is just to like workshop this, like DIY it with no, like that's not my area of expertise, right? So it's also like, I just want to have the intellectual humility to be like, I mean, we can go DIY it if you want, but I don't know, whatever. Well,
Mr. Scott,
What's that?
what's your thought on just trying to get the committee to get together at this point to figure out where they want to go and
I
what they're
think
going
we
to get
should
done?
just bury this for a while. I don't think it's necessary right now. I mean, we already kind of talked about it, made the decision. All of a sudden, some commission's going to be upset that they didn't get to vote on it or something, or get their input. They could always put their input in later. We could always look at it later. This may be what this is, but it's not a priority.
All right. Well, we've got 3 yes, 3 no. So I guess we're just going to let this sit. Okay. Moving on to the next item. Number 18.
Hold discussion regarding the Neighborhood Commission Recommendation Resolution 2024-02RR-NC, encouraging the council to deny any future rent by the bed or purchase-built student housing to be constructed in the city and provide direction to the city manager.
Okay, council, from what I've heard, people at citizen comment here, what I've heard in the community, I've been hearing a lot about this for years. And I think there's multiple issues here. There's the purpose-built student housing, which is really just whether you're going to advertise to students. Stop me if I'm wrong at any time, please. It doesn't have to do with the physical, how it's built, which generally is a bathroom for every bedroom, not all of them, but most of them. And then there's the leasing practices. And what I've heard more complaints about is the leasing practices. And Mr. Aguirre, I don't believe the leasing practices is what's on our agenda this evening. Would I be correct in that?
That's correct for the current agenda posting. That could be a future topic of discussion or supplement.
Yeah. Okay. So
If you want to put that on, I'll second that.
the part that I would want to talk about, that I've heard the most about, is the leasing practices. So I am happy to put this back on the agenda with the addition of the leasing practices, because I think that's going to be more of a focus of our discussion. Let me ask Ms. Hernandez a question. I'm going to try to say it, but you're going to know what I mean, and you'll be able to answer it. The purpose-built student housing, the building of, there's a bathroom for every bedroom, which makes it easier to rent by the bedroom, and the practice of rent by the bedroom, how tied together are those and how not tied together are they? You know what I'm asking, right?
Yes, so
Thank you.
from a land development code perspective, the definition of purpose-built student housing, designed, marketed, used.
Right.
When we talk about design, there's a little caveat in there that we changed our multifamily allowance to only allow 3-bedroom units, which was one way that we were trying to kind of ease that rent by the bedroom student housing, so we had more of a definition. So you can design.
Because we had that one apartment complex that came in and wanted to do 10.
Bedrooms per unit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were trying to build
Yes.
mini dorms. I diverge, please continue.
And we have a dwelling unit equivalency to help us with that as well. But talking about the design for purpose-built student housing, you can have additional bedrooms, you can go up to 4. An example I like to use when people talk about a bathroom to a bedroom, there are some single-family homes that every bedroom has a bathroom. So that's not necessarily just an apartment thing. But the development code and the leasing practices are completely separate. And you can have a traditional apartment complex that is rent by the bedroom because that's their leasing practice. But that is not something that we regulate in the development code. So a lot of people put purpose-built student housing / rent by the bedroom as if they're the same thing, but they are not when we're looking at our development code, and we don't touch the leases with the exception of there's a use standard for purpose-built student housing that helps those students who sign leases and the building's not ready when it's time to move in.
Right.
That's the one lease crossover that we have in the code, but you're correct, Mayor.
Okay, thank you
You're welcome.
very much. I thought I understood that from the way you explained it before, but you explained it better than I do. So I think probably the safest thing to do at this point is to bring it back with the I don't know how to, method of leasing provisions, whatever. I see Mr. Carr
Send it
here.
back to the commission.
No. But I think that's what they really want us to talk about. I want to be able to talk about it.
So
Am I
we can
wrong?
come back with a more concise resolution that includes
No,
that?
no, just to come back here,
And
not
it-
to go back to the neighborhood commission.
And it's basically a discussion about leasing practices for housing, targeted towards students, really.
Yeah,
And
I want what's in the resolution and then add the leasing. I don't want to
Both.
lose what's in the resolution.
Okay.
In the same item. May we do that?
so this will carry forward on the purpose-built student housing as well as the
I
leasing
don't want to
practices.
lose what they have actually asked us to do,
Understood.
but I want to add what I think the issue really is.
Okay, we can do that.
Are y'all good with that?
It's fine.
We'll capture that on the next agenda then.
Okay.
Oh, and I guess the question is, would this be for the 19th, or as that
I'm
agenda
willing to
too
wait
full?
and look and see how our agendas are, but if we could have it back in maybe one of the next 3 agendas, is that
Okay.
reasonable to ask?
Yeah, I think we can do that. And so it'd be basically having a similar caption, just adding about leasing
Adding the
practices.
leasing.
Okay,
Or whatever the proper terminology
Okay.
is.
okay.
And so that concludes this discussion. Council, it is 7:34, and we usually have a break at this time, but we only have one item that's going to have any discussion, but we may be discussing it for a while. So let's take a break till 7:40 by that clock.
Yes, good yeah. Amanda, yeah.
Good job, Amanda. We have come back
Yeah,
from
he knew, he
our
could tell.
recess, and we are at item 19.
Hold discussion regarding city council procurement card, among other things, and set up limits based solely on amount in the awarded travel, requiring council members themselves to be responsible for their accounts.
Motion put to postpone.
You don't want to have this discussion
Not right
tonight?
now, Saul's not here. I think he needs to be part of this discussion. I'd hate to leave him out.
So we can, I guess, motion to postpone the discussion. It's a discussion item would be in order. All right. Motion to
Motion, Mayor, that's, you can do that.
postpone.
Do I need a name when the next time, or just the next meeting?
Was there a
Next-
second? Oh, you seconded
Yeah.
it, right?
Wait, who seconded it?
Ms. Garza.
Ms. Garza seconded it, okay. Postpone to when?
The next available, like you said, when it can fit on their agenda, the base. Yeah.
But sometime in the next three,
Yeah,
when we know all of us, when we know all of us will be here.
That'd be fine, yeah.
All right. So, let's vote.
Oh, yeah, click.
Okay, the
I love
motion
the
passes
clicker.
6-0.
All right.
You're welcome.
Item 20. We will get.
The city council will convene an executive session pursuant to the following section of the Texas Government Code A, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney to receive legal advice regarding the process related to appeals of administrative determinations on the standards for installation of electric facilities. B, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, and Section 551.072, real property regarding the lease of real property near the intersection of South Edward Gary Street and South LBJ Drive.
Okay, and we always post our executive sessions on the 3 o'clock agenda, the work session, and this one. Our goal is always to have it, that discussion at the 3 o'clock meeting. We did, and we concluded that. We posted here in case we don't finish, and we need to finish up now. We finished that discussion. We do not need item 20 at this time. So we're going to 21.
Consider action by motion or provide directions to staff regarding the following executive session items held during the work session and/or regular meeting pursuant to the following section of the Texas Government Code, just as stated above.
And for item A, we did receive the information. And on item B, we gave direction to staff. Any actionable items will come back on an agenda at some point in the future. And so now we are at question and answer session with press and public. I'm looking at my list. Is there anyone in chambers or in the lobby who has a question for us? You get 3 minutes to ask your questions. If we can give you a definitive answer now, we will. If not, we will get your email address and we will get back with you later. Any question and answers? And Ms. Capoletta is not online with us?
No, ma'am.
In that case, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll give that one to Mr. Scott, seconded by Mr. Gleason, and we'll vote on that one.
Ms. Garza, Mr. Scott.
Oh, I forgot we're doing the click it or ticket.
Yep.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, we are adjourned at 7:48.